It's time for another lap around the track with all the latest in motorsports interviews. Sometimes we get bent feelings, but we can't wait for the Bent Fender Podcast with your hosts, Nathan Conway and Wes Llewellyn.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode of the Bent Fender Podcast. I'm Nathan Porkchop Conway. With me, as always, Wes. Let's winterize this damn thing, Llewellyn. We say that, guys, because it is getting close to the winter months. Racing season winding down. We're close to the end of October now, and, we're going to have to maybe winterize the race cars and winterize the racetracks, but you know what? We're not going to really winterize the show as much as we would that. We're not going to stop, so that's a good thing.
Well, and that's kind of where we're coming from with this. We know you guys are getting ready to start putting stuff up for the season.
I just love all you guys.
You know, you're going to continue to work on those cars. You're going to continue tuning them in over the winter months. But we want to continue providing you all the racing content we can.
Yeah.
So we are going to, we've made the commitment, and you guys know that we are a 52-week-a-year show, barring scheduling, mishaps and what have you. But
right.
We're
tentatively.
We are here for you.
Yeah, we are here for you, man, and that's what we want to do for you guys. I mean, that's what our goal was to set out starting to do this, and season one is not over yet, and I think we're going to make the official end of season one will be the end of December. Season two will start in January.
Yep.
I think that's just a natural break in everything, and maybe not any breaks in the weeks or breaks in the shows, but we're going to keep on moving. However, we have to do that. Tons and tons of people, hundreds of guests. I would hedge to say. That we haven't talked to yet, and that's the thing, man. We've got an endless amount of guests. I feel like that we still need to get on here doing one per week. I think that's a sustainable model, and it has proven to be so. As of
it seems
now.
Words are very hard for you.
Yeah,
today.
words are hard, man. But
I don't get it.
Hey, man,
you're
I'm
a
a driver, man. I'm not a talker.
Oh, who you lying to?
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
I don't know about all that, but I know you are a talker.
I just love all you guys, man.
But no, yeah, we have a ton of drivers. There are drivers from other tracks that we haven't capitalized on. We've been working with Eddie Campbell a little bit, getting some things talked out with him.
Track Talk Thursday with Eddie Campbell. Check that out.
We have a whole slew of drivers from the Paducah, Clarksville area that we can tap into.
Not just that, Salem, Sports Drome, the Indianapolis Speed Drome.
Even here locally in Western Kentucky, we've still got a ton of drivers. And you guys are out there listening to this. I know you are. Because
we're recording it.
Let us know. Let us know that you're ready to come on the show and share your stories. We did get a message from not necessarily an active driver now, but someone who is very active in racing. And he's interested in being on the show. We just have to get the schedules lined up to work that.
Yep.
As Jake Shen will let you know, you should check him out on flagmanonly.com. I am talking about, of course, Carl Schock.
Yeah.
So we're excited to get him on the show and hear about, his racing career and, what it's like to be a flagman,
right.
and all that stuff. So it gives you guys some different types of stories to listen to.
Right. Well, one thing, some stories that we're going to hear today, a man that is no stranger to racing and, a character in his own right, Jeremy Adkisson. And, great part of that racing family, the Adkisson racing family. A lot of people knew, John T. Adkisson, his dad, legendary motor builder and crew chief around here. Also his brother, Shane Adkisson, longtime racer. And now another generation of racers, Jeremy Jr., going to be strapping into a car at the Windy Hollow Enduro. So, and maybe running a couple of other races before the season's out. We only have about 2 more nights of racing in this season, so they better hurry up.
But
they got all next season.
There's still plenty of time for you to get a little bit of racing action, in.
Right.
Once racing season, officially ends and it's too cold to go outside and run a car or in a track, maybe get over to Skills VR Arcade.
Yes.
And do some racing on their simulators there to keep the old muscles in tune.
Well, I will tell you, man. For anybody that doesn't know, Skills VR Arcade is located in the mall, the old KB Toys building.
Town Square Mall, that is.
Yeah, Town Square Mall. Well, I say the mall, and it's usually here. But we will have another mall here fairly shortly up on Highway 54. So Town Square Mall is what we're talking about. It's on the Sears end of the mall where Sears used to be, and it's the old KB Toys store right there in the mall. And man, they've got those racing simulators, and I'll tell you, they had a little contest the other night, and I was able to go and get into that. They had 3 laps on the simulator. It was like $5 buy-in. Fastest time wins. I think you got like 3 times at it. So, the most you could cost yourself about $15, and it helped them out getting people in there. But I'll tell you, aside from that fact of us guys getting in the simulators and racing, had to do 3 laps around Watkins Glen. Had to drive Brad Keselowski's car, but there wasn't nothing we can do about that. But, we had to do 3 laps around Watkins Glen. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you think it's easy, go out there and sit in it one time. And you will find out that it is not near as easy as what you think it is. But what I will tell you is you can get better in a very short amount of time at doing that. You can learn how to read the bumps of the car. But, man, when you turn left, it turns left. Whenever you turn right, it turns right. And it'll lean you in the seat, lean you back when you're in the gas, lean you forward when you're in the brakes. It was pretty neat. But it's a lot of fun. That was what the takeaway was. Everybody was smiling, having a good time. All the guys that were competing in it, sitting around laughing, having a great time, ribbing everybody. It was just a really, really fun situation we were in there. And, a lot of guys coming from, asphalt, dirt, they were all in there. Sprint car guys were there.
Right.
And they ended up winning the daggum thing, And they don't drive stock cars; they drive sprint cars. But let me tell you, if they're driving sprint cars, they're doing something right, man, because they're crazy. So.
And we talk about it is we're plugging our buddy Brent's and Donnie's business, and we're doing it because they are racers. They are part of our racing family. Everyone knows and loves the fairs. Great team there, and again, we promote anybody and everybody who wants to have something to share with the world. So
right, but that's the thing is we support people who support racing.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing. And we'll support anybody, but we support people who support racing first, and that's the biggest thing. So get out there and check out Skills VR Arcade, coming on as a partner, and maybe you want to elaborate with that to. One of our companion shows that you guys need to check out over the off season as well. Yeah,
everybody knows Blake Smith. They know he's a great friend and partner of this show. He has struck out on his own.
Struck out.
Does
he need a paramedic?
No,
struck out.
Struck out like I don't know, Western Expansion or whatever. I forgot their names. Lewis and Clark.
That's it.
He's like Lewis and Clark of the Western Kentucky internet radio fame. He's created his own show. It's on a brand new platform. It's going to be internet-based. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be able to get his show wherever your phone is, wherever your computer is. Just like us with a podcast, we are pre-recorded and edited. He's going to be live.
Right.
So it's going to be very similar to the format of the show that he hosted previously from a pizza joint here in town. And it's going to be a good thing. So, but Skills is... During the off season, we're going to do
one Monday a month, right?
One show a month during the off season at Skills, and once the season kicks in, the racing season, then it's going to move to its semi-permanent home because we are going to share duties with Skills, and we are going to broadcast 3 weeks of the month from one location, and we're going to broadcast 1 week from the month from Skills. So it's a cool thing.
But that was a deal that was just inked this week on that location. So it's going to be a pretty cool deal, and we'll tell you more about that when all the paperwork is finalized on that. If there is any paperwork.
I'm also not going to take all of Blake's. No. I'm not going to take all of Blake's thunder.
No.
It is his show. It is his announcement to make. But I am pulling double duty as the engineer and co-host of this show and the engineer of his show.
Right, so it's going to be a good deal.
Yeah.
All under the Bluegrass Motorsports Media umbrella, so it's a pretty cool deal. So.
And we are looking for other media professionals to expand and to join Bluegrass Motorsports Media.
Right.
So if you're a photographer, if you're a print writer, copywriter, let us know, and we'll get you brought in under the umbrella as well.
Right. Big things happening, man. And another big thing that's happening, and we tell you guys all the time, you need to make sure, I'm going to say it one more time because in case you didn't hear me, you need to make sure you're at the Owensboro-Davis County Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, Kentucky's Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony, November the 3rd at the Speedseum, down at the Museum of Science and History there in downtown Owensboro on 2nd Street. Going to be a big day, and I'll say that because it's a Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
It is.
It's going to be awesome, and it's going to be a lot of guys that are deserving of going in there. A couple of those guys have been our guests on our show, and we've talked about them at length, and want to try to get more people on the show from that class. Mm-hmm. However, immediately following the induction ceremony, still a part of the day, there is a huge, and let me tell you, it just got even bigger this week.
Huger.
Yes, it just got huger.
Huger.
It's hugest. Huge ass.
No, it's not a huge ass.
Oh, okay. But it's huge.
I am a huge ass sometimes.
But, well, it is very big. It's a
big.
huge announcement. I'm not playing.
Big.
Yeah, no. We're not just making light of it. It's going to be big. And you guys are going to want to tune in. You're going to want to know what's going on.
Don't just tune in.
Come down there. Yes, absolutely.
Come down, be part of the ceremony.
Bring your kids. Bring your wives.
There's plenty of stuff for the kids to play around and do in the museum. And get down there and support these living legends, these guys that are being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Do not attempt to start up the Orange Blossom Special sitting in there.
Don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Or the regatta boat.
Right.
No.
That will not end well.
No.
But what you can do is come down there and see some of Owensboro-Davis County racing history and Kentucky's racing history, and it's going to be a pretty cool deal. So come down there November the 3rd. I think everything kicks off at around 12:30 in the afternoon.
It's not tomorrow, but next Saturday.
Right. Saturday from this one.
Not tomorrow, next Saturday.
Right. So make sure you mark that down on your calendars. We're so excited to freaking tell you. But we just can't. We're just going to wait until then.
The anticipation has been building and building and building, and
And again, it got a huge shot in the arm this week.
We're a week away, and we're super excited about it. And
so anyway,
I'm so excited.
Enough said on that front. Make sure you get down there.
Hide it.
Yeah, that's right. I'm about to lose control, buddy.
I think I
like it. Yeah.
So let's talk about sponsoring and supporting.
Well, we need to get to Jeremy Adkisson's stories because I really want to listen to what he's saying. So, but we do have to pay the bills.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Hey,
you're the worst.
Yeah, but what I got is the sponsor list. So now, Mach 5 Race Cars Parts and Cards, Fairview IT's Management, Martin's Towing and Recovery, Chad's Barbershop, Glenstone Construction, Slingshot Media, Red Star Graphics. Go see them if you want anything designed. We can do that. Lori Kimball Home Realty, High Octane Racewear and Apparel, and Willie's Carburetor and Dyno Shop. If you want to find us on Facebook, you can find us Conway Racing Team. Also, the Bent Fender Podcast. If you want to find us on Twitter, at Conway Race Team, Instagram, Conway Racing, www.conwayracingteam.com, and thebentfenderpodcast.com. Now, if you want to find the podcast,
or tell somebody where to go to find the podcast,
help them do so. Help them come to us, and we can get them hooked up on it. Where would you do that?
You can go to iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, the newest editions, Overcast and Radio Public, just all over the place.
Right,
all over the place.
We've got it everywhere, so you guys can find it, and that's the biggest thing. So, guys, we love what we're doing here.
We do.
We hope you love it too. And we're going to continue to be doing that, trying to get guests scheduled as quickly as we can. We've got to make sure it's feasible for everyone, and we do that. We want to start branching out again, covering some of the stuff we've done. We're kind of winterizing the show. We're starting to maybe pour a little bit of antifreeze into the radiator. That way we can still run our last 2 races and then be done with it. So, that's how we got to do it. So anyway, you have anything else right now?
No, I think we just need to talk to Jeremy.
Absolutely, man. We don't need to waste any more of his time, and you guys want to hear the interviews. So let's go ahead and take that first break. We'll get some commercials out there and pay a few bills, satisfy, payola, plugola? And Satisfy.
All right, we'll be back.
Are you looking for a hometown barbershop specializing in the best haircuts in Western Kentucky? Master Barber Chad Thompson has everything you need to keep you looking sharp for not only your special occasions, but for every day as well. Offering a line of haircut products to take care of your hair between cuts. Walk-ins are welcome, and you're always going to find friends and neighbors at Chad's. You can find Chad at 10655 Highway 764 in Whitesville, Kentucky. Or you can give him a call at 270-903-8183.
All right, we're back here at Fairview IT Management, sitting here with Jeremy Adkisson. Jeremy, we knew it was going to be another great show. A little bit of old school, a little bit of new school. Man, thank you for coming on the show, being a part of it, and coming on and give some good stories today.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to be on, Nathan. Like I said, I've been around racing since the early 80s, so I know I just told my age, but yeah, I think we'll enjoy it.
Oh, you ain't that old. Listen, man. Well, since you tipped it off just like that, let's do like we always do, man. Let's take it all the way back, man. How did you get involved in racing? Just from a kid standpoint, how did it all start?
Well, as everyone knows, my dad, John T., he was an old gearhead. He never actually raced himself, but he built a lot of motors and worked on a lot of cars and stuff. And I had an uncle, Steve Hawkins. He was number 99 out there at KMS. He raced for years, and he actually passed away out there at KMS, died of a massive heart attack. And like I said, that was in '85. I loved racing then, and then I had a cousin that he got killed in a car accident coming home from work, and he raced. He was number 44, so I took a number from each of them. That's where I come up 49 and got my number, and it's a pretty special number. A lot of people thinks that I got it from Kenny Rogers, the six pack, but man, I never even heard of that movie till I got that number, and then it seemed like I seen it a lot more often.
He said, "What, Kenny Rogers? I didn't get that number from Kenny Rogers."
That's right.
Well, that's a good way. I'm glad you brought that up because most people know synonymous with the number 49. You and your brother run that number for a long time, and and your dad was a big part of you boys being involved in racing and things like that, especially at an early age. And so, what do you remember about maybe your first few times going out to the track? I guess it was around Kentucky Motor Speedway, correct?
Yes, sir. Grew up out there. Yeah. Well, the first thing I remember back when the old track was still the little quarter mile, they
that's a short track back then.
That's right. They had a bunch of trees behind the grandstands and had hills, and all of us young kids would be back there playing Hot Wheels and jumping around the hills on our bikes and just having a good old time. And then it seemed like once our family members or uncles or brothers or dads or whoever was racing, we'd all stop playing and go watch them and hopefully get our picture taken out there on the track. And the first time I got my picture taken with my uncle, man, I was hooked right then and there. I wanted to be the one that the kids were watching on the tracks and wanting to be like. So that's one of the main reasons I got involved.
Well, that's a good enough reason to get involved, that's for sure. And having a family legacy in racing, that very helps boost that career of yours anyway. Because you did have so many close family members that did very well out there, and that kind of cemented what it was for you.
Yes, sir, it did. Like I said, I enjoy not just motorsports, but competition in general. We're a pretty competitive bunch.
That's to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about those first few years there. I mean, were you a big part of helping in the shop or with your dad and your uncle and kind of hanging around and learning how to turn wrenches or parts of cars and things like that?
Yeah, I was a little bit. My youngest brother, or my middle brother Shane, man, I can remember him in pictures with diapers, got it underneath my uncle's car with a screwdriver working on them and stuff. And like I said, I was a little older. I was out more riding my bike and stuff. But once my dad started building motors and I started getting a little understanding of how they worked, yeah, I got quite a bit of time in the shop with my dad, learning everything to do on a motor.
Well, that's I think that may be a lot of people wouldn't understand that maybe these days, but you can make memories however you can, and that's one of those things where, and we'll get to more about your dad here in a few minutes, but that was a big part of your childhood and getting to spend that time with your dad in there, turning that, learning how to degree engines and put things together the right way. I think that the legacy there is that most people knew, if John T. was involved in it, it was going to run pretty well. So I think that's one of those things where, to you, that those memories are invaluable.
Yeah. He, like I said, he could make a Coke can come to life. He, we wasn't very wealthy family, and we had to take what we had to make it run good, to stay competitive. And man, he would spend hours out in the garage just fine-tuning, cleaning, polishing, doing whatever he could do to keep us boys or whoever engine he built up front.
Well, talk about maybe your first time. When did you get the bug to drive? I guess, to really get into a car. How did that all come about?
Well, the first time I ever raced anything, it was a go-kart. It was over at the Ohio County Park. Yep. My younger cousin, Ryan Koger, was racing go-karts. He had 3 or 4 of them, and his dad asked me to drive one for him one night. Well, I jumped in that thing. First time I ever been in anything, pretty fast, and we won our first race, and, man, it's been going wild since then.
Well, talk about, man, you kind of tipped the iceberg on your cousin there, man. Ryan, and everybody kind of knows Ryan around the racing circles. Been in about everything from a go-kart to a late model to now in kind of the mini-stock ranks, and talk about that guy. I know he's a character for sure.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we've been through a lot, between his dad and my dad, and just family in general. We do a lot for each other. He helps me out. I help him out. I built his motors for him when he won the mini stock championship, and just anything I can do to help anybody. It just don't have to be family related. I've built quite a few motors for guys and not really charge them, and like I said, I just enjoy it.
Well, that is a good thing, man, and that's one thing that lasts is part of racing is you got to love it.
That's right.
You got to love it, and you got to love what you're doing, and you've kind of taken a little bit more of a backseat to driving in lieu of working for sure, but kind of being an engine builder around here,
Yeah, that is true. Like I said, if it wasn't for friends and buddies and stuff letting me drive their cars here and there, it'd been quite a few years since I've been in a car. But speaking of that, I got a young son, Jeremy Jr., and sorry I gave him my name. He's gonna get a bad rep already just having a name. But he run motocross this year, first year racing himself. He won a championship, and he's got the bug to get in a car. So we bought a little enduro car. We're gonna try to run it Sunday if the weather holds off, and I probably made a mistake putting him in one because he's hooked. Old Daddy's gonna be broke now.
Well, I did. You did send me a video earlier today, man, and he was really getting on it there in the field and running around the barn, and man, he ain't scared of it. That's for sure.
I'm telling you, I thought that was the first time he ever been in a car, but according to that video, it looks like he's got many a laps under him already.
He had it going, man. It was a pretty cool deal to see. But one thing I want to do is just take it back there. You kind of talked about go-kart racing a little bit, and we're a fan of all types of racing here at the Bent Fender Podcast, and talk about running over there at the old Ohio County Park, and the facility's still there. They don't run there anymore, but it's still there, and talk about maybe what it was like, if you can remember those feelings that night, and strapping into that go-kart for the first time, and how everything went.
Yeah, man, it was real exciting. Like I said, the first time they asked me to race, everybody. Any racer knows you get butterflies, and man, I started feeling queasy and stuff. But like I said, once that green flag dropped, all the butterflies went away, and once that checkered flag fell and I was the one getting a picture made with it, I was hooked. It's a pretty neat feeling.
Well, it would be, man, and to set in your first time, in a go-kart like that. We talked to Blake Hillard a couple of weeks ago, and he did kind of the same path, man. His very first go-kart race. He got out there and took that checkered flag, and man, he was like, "Oh, I couldn't believe it,"
Yeah. There's not another feeling in the world like it, man. You can sit here and tell everybody you're blue in the face, but until you experience it, you don't really know what I'm talking about.
So now, did you stay in a go-kart for a little while, or how did things progress right there?
We did. That was an old yard cart, my first one that we ran. Then we got into the racing sidewinders. They called them way back years ago, and being on a limited budget, family always came first. We raced, when we could afford it, when we had time. And I never wasn't fortunate enough to run a full season because of our funding and stuff. But we just had a good time in the karts and stuff. And like I said, I wish we could have raced more. But after I got out, I was 16, didn't really listen to Dad, or had better things to do. My younger brother took over Shane, and man, they went everywhere. They went to Memphis, Tennessee, you name it. They've been there and raced it.
Well, talk about your brother a little bit. I mean, were you kind of doing your own thing there? Were you still kind of on the crew and had to kind of take a more of a crewman role?
Yeah, I did. Once I got out of the go-kart, I had an old four-wheeler, and I motocrossed quite a bit. Like I said, I raced even down at Western Kentucky Speedway, over at Chrisney, Indiana, over at HR's, the old Honda shop owners track. I mean, yeah, it was pretty much me and my buddies and whoever else could go. We just, you know, at that age, you kind of rebellious, you know, against your parents and stuff. And I done my own thing, and Shane and Dad done his thing, and like I said, I don't regret none of it. I had a good time doing everything we done.
Well, a lot of people, you mentioned this, and a lot of people may not remember that Western Kentucky Speedway did have a motocross track right in the middle of it years ago. And remember, you had to pull up on the big berm to get your picture taken if you won a race. I got to actually experience that, man, and that was a pretty cool deal. It was kind of crazy having a motocross track in the middle.
Yeah, at Old Tabletop is where we got our pictures made using stock cars. And speaking of Western Kentucky Speedway, like I said, we've raced go-karts down there all the way to full-blown stock cars. So I wish that track the best. You know, you just got to treat everybody fairly on these racetracks, and try to get within the rules of each track. You know, the closer all the tracks are on the rules, the more cars they're going to get. And I just wish everybody could get in sync on the same set of rules.
Well, we'll definitely talk about that here in just a few minutes, especially on the state of racing, because I do want to hear more thoughts on that. But one thing is, so now you got into motocross and kind of four-wheeler racing and things like that. And how long did you do that? How many years did you?
I motocrossed till I was 18, so it was roughly 2 years.
Right.
And then over racing, Jason White come up with this idea. KMS started a cruiser class, so he had the car, and I had an old motor. We pulled out we called it the farm truck. And me and Jason and his dad and my dad, man, we put that car together, and I bet that old cruiser car won 28 features that year between me and Jason and Ricky and my dad. That's where all the getting into the big cars come along, was for Jason and Ricky White getting me involved in it.
Well, talk about getting hooked up with those guys, because, I mean, you know, racing Jason White, man, everybody knew how tough that guy could be, and, man, a heck of a driver. And, you know, talk about how that deal came about and how much work it was and how it kind of went there.
Yeah, well, this is exactly how it started. Old Jason had like a 68 truck he drove on the street, and I had my old 79 Malibu, and we raced one night. You know, we went to high school together. Heck, we went to elementary school together even, and we after we got done racing that night, he pulled up beside me and said, "Man, you know they started a new class out there at KMS. I got a car, don't really have a motor or nothing." And one thing led to another, and we was both hooked.
So you guys just throw this car together, I guess, and how did it? Was that your first time in a car?
First time in a big car, and you could tell it because I never lifted. Almost took out turns 4 wall there. All the officials were standing there, took off running. That was in the heat race because we swapped between heat and features.
Right.
And so Racing Jason drove at that first feature, and he won. And man, it just checker after checker with that car. We all had a good time with it.
Now, was this? I can't quite remember, but was it when they ran the dog leg, or did they run the round track?
They ran the dog leg on the front stretch, and on the back stretch it was the whole track. Yeah.
So no wonder they took off running right down there and turned forward when he was coming in hot down there.
Yeah, it was something else. Like I said, Barney Lane, man, you know, a lot of people give him heck for the way he run his track, but he run a good track. The stands were packed every weekend you went out there, and as far as I know, he treated everybody pretty fairly. I've heard of him throwing out when he used to own a car, his own drivers. So, you know, you got to keep it fair to keep people coming back.
Oh, absolutely. So now you guys played around in the cruiser class a little bit, and did you guys split up after that year, and you trying to get kind of your own thing going, or did you guys run a couple seasons there?
Yeah, we did. We had it was probably 8 races into that first cruiser season. He was wanting to advance up to street stock, and so was I. So I bought a car from a guy. It was a fairly good 2-door Impala out there, and he was going to run it cruiser. And before he took it out there and tore it up, I bought it from him. And it just escalated from there, man. I got my motor back. Dad went through it. The next year we run out there. But, man, it seems like back then when I started was a rookie. Me and Jason and Dwayne Howard, we was all rookies, running against people like Frankie Bartlett, Bruce Birch. And, you know, it was some stiff competition. But, like I said, we we learned, and then that next year we actually landed a good sponsor, Chris Blythe with Texas Roadhouse. And
right.
Man, that was the first almost full season I got to run because I had some backing, and we finished 4th in points that year. And man, I've had a pretty good season that year.
Well, I want you to talk about for a second, if you can. You talked about some of those guys out there running, Dwayne Howard and Frankie Bartlett and the Birch family. And man, you know, it is stiff competition. You think about what those guys have done out there at Whitesville, man. I mean, that was the cream of the crop, especially in street stock class, and those big cars that they were running. And talk about racing with some of those guys. Did you ever get in the pits and kind of have conversations? Do they take the young man in a little bit and try to steer him?
I'll tell you what, Frankie Bartlett really did. I started pitting beside him, and he started, talking to me, and he said, "Jeremy, you just got to calm down." I wasn't about 19 years old, and I was real excited. He said, "You just got to finesse a little bit, man," and I started doing that, and I learned a lot from them guys. Larry McMahon, man, like I said, there's so much knowledge out there on that track, and I learned more, not just trying to beat and bang with them and beat them, but just following behind them, seeing what lines they run. And like I said, even Barry Snyder then,
wow,
he was a rookie in that class, and like I said, all of us kind of that first year I ran street stock, we was fast, but compared to the older guys out there, 20 plus years of time on that track, it didn't show that we was fast, but actually, if we went out there today against some of the competition, we was pretty fast.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, and I think that's one thing you can speak to is you're right. When you think about those guys trying to help you, and guys that know, I mean, just absolutely could drive that place with their, turn their helmet around backwards and could make it around the track. For guys like that to kind of take you in a little bit and start talking to you and just kind of give you a few pointers on what you need to do, I think that's one thing that you just got to listen to it.
That is right, Nathan. Like I said, no matter how many years you've been out on the track or how many you've been racing or how long you've been building motors, there's always somebody out there that's got one up on you, and you just need to absorb all the knowledge that you hear and what you see and the things that do work, things that don't work, and just take all that in. Like I said, a race car, a lot of people think it's the old redneck sport. You just knock the windows out of a car, get in and go. But, man, the guys winning are staying the nights in their shops and setting them up and working on air pressure. If you're not changing something, you're not trying to get no faster. And like I said, Frankie Bartlett, Bruce Birch, even Ivo Birch, Larry McMahon, Gene Mitchell. I mean, there were so many people that helped us out when we started. I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, and that's true because, another thing you mentioned as well is, you got out there on the track with them, and you're right. You're like, instead of beating and banging, oh, man, I'm trying to outrun them this week. That's what I want to do. Well, maybe, see what they're doing because they're consistent. They run the same lines. They know where the track is. They know where their car needs to go. And, that's a big help to a guy just to make sure. I think there's one aside there is there's no shame in running behind a guy if you're learning.
That is right. And speaking of learning out there on that track, I always had brake issues. And my dad, being I was a rookie, never would really listen to me because all of the stuff, as far as brakes went on, it was new. So he thought I had good brakes. Well, it just so happened, Kel Yarborough, Harry Gant, Jeremy Mayfield, and a couple other NASCAR drivers come out there and drove a bunch of us guys' cars. Well, Kel Yarborough drove mine, and he got out of that car and said, "Man, you would be 3/10 faster if I could stop this thing in the turns." Well, after that race, my dad finally fixed my brakes, and I think we won the next 5 features in a row after that. It took somebody like him to convince him that his brakes, being a mechanic for the years he wasn't working. And, man, once he did get them working, we was hard to hang.
Well, I know that there's a story there, and I want to get to that. But first, I want to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll come back on the other side after. We got to pay some bills here, man. We got to get a little sponsorship here. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll come back on the other side, and I want to ask you a little bit about Kel Yarborough.
Sure deal.
Fairview IT Management is your one-stop shop for your home computing needs. But did you know they are also one of Owensboro's leading business automation services, offering network automation, system administration, and remote managed support? Fairview IT Management can become your help desk to help you reduce staffing costs and keep your bottom line low. Give Gabriel Kirtley a call at 270-228-4339 for all your business technology needs.
All right, we're back from the break. Still sitting here, Fairview IT Management, kind of our home for the podcast. We want to give a quick shout out to them. That appreciate Gabriel Kirtley and the gang letting us use their facility. But sitting here with Jeremy Adkisson, and Jeremy, before the break, we were talking a little bit about some of the old days there at Kentucky Motor Speedway, kind of the heydays maybe people will remember. But you tip the hat there to the night of the NASCAR stars, man. We've talked about it a couple of times here on the podcast, and how it's such a cool deal that some of those guys would come in, the legends, man. Cale Yarborough, Harry Gant, Kerry Earnhardt would come down there, the Waltrips, and they would all come down there and get in guys' cars, what have you, mostly street stock or sportsman cars, and get out there and have a race, and people love to see it, signing autographs. But you kind of talked about Cale Yarborough driving your car, and how cool is that? Daytona 500 champion, NASCAR champion, just one of the best good old boys there ever was around NASCAR. Tell us a little bit about talking to him and him hanging out in the pit and what kind of guy he was.
Yeah, man, Cale's a very down-to-earth guy. You wouldn't think it as little as he is, but that man's knuckles are big around as my wrist. I can see why he got a hold of them Allison boys back many years ago. He looked like he'd be hard to handle. Yeah. But back to him, driving my car. Man, once he got out there and all the knowledge and things he told us and told my dad what he needed to do to the car to get us faster, it was daylight and dark. Like I said, when we first built my car, Dad tried to let me have Charlie Bartlett drive it, and that man right there was a legend in a car. And
right.
Being young, and I'm the one got all the money in it, I wouldn't let him drive it, and I regret that this day bad, because I could have got a lot faster letting that man drive my car one time than I could a whole season just fighting it.
Right,
and,
right.
Getting back to Cale, and like I said, Kerry Earnhardt and all them guys that come down, tracks nowadays need to do that stuff. It gets the fans out there. It gets not only fans, it brings more sponsorship in for the guys. I wish tracks nowadays would do that, because it seemed like KMS back, like you said, back in the heyday, always had something. They had professional wrestling come out. They'd have bands,
Well, that was just a Sunday night at the races.
That's right. That's right. Especially if one of them Adkisson boys out there.
Oh, listen here now.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you're right. They had a lot of cool stuff out there, and you talk about those guys, the NASCAR guys, coming out there. These guys drove when cars had manual brakes and suspension like we run, still running today, 40, 50 years later. Those guys learned on manual, steering boxes and things like that. That's something that those guys were used to, that type of technology. It's not like it is today with all the machines and different things that can do things for your car. But those guys knew how to adjust on them just by the way they felt.
That's true, man. Like I said, I had the opportunity to run a Kentucky Speedway, the mile-and-a-half NASCAR track. And like I said, we took the old junky street stocks, and we had to get them up to date on the safety and stuff. But the technology NASCAR guys have compared to what we had when we went up there, I lost a little bit of respect for them, because they whine and cry, I can't do this, I can't do that, and here they are in $500,000 race cars, that or more, and here we are out there $20,000-$25,000 street stocks, and and we was driving the heck out of them, and we was grinning from ear to ear. And I know it's a little different if you're getting paid, paid to drive, or that's how you earn your money, but
yeah, I
lost just a little bit of respect from them guys, because you hear them all the time crying, especially certain few ones on there.
Yeah, you kind of look at it like, well, I don't know why it doesn't drive. You've got every machine to make it feel like the whole race is, you're going to run the whole race before it ever even hits the track, and it doesn't seem fair to a guy that's got to turn those wrenches and adjust this bolt and that bolt, and just a little bit of wedge here, tire pressure there. You don't have a whole lot of adjustment on these old street stocks. The way they set, we don't have big things that we can do, big swings you can take out of them.
That's right.
Well, you did talk about that going to Kentucky Speedway, and the Frank Kimmel Street Stock Series. I think it was a 6-race deal there. I think it went from Bristol to Kentucky Speedway and a couple other tracks around the Midwest and things like that. But talk about how that came about, and you guys kind of was like, well, hey, this be probably pretty fun. I know Jeff Macy went up there, I think, and a bunch of them, and did the thing, and kind of tell us about that deal.
Yeah, like I said, I was working out of town when that happened. Back in March, we decided to go race. It was Labor Day weekend, 2007, so it was about the end of May. We, me, my dad, and my brothers, and a few buddies built that car, like I said, in about 2 months, motor and all. And we went up there and raced against guys that had been practicing, because Kimmel's had that race scheduled, about a year in advance. And we raced against guys that had been up there several practice sessions, and we threw that car together. Matter of fact, we just finished adjusting the valves the night before we went up there. And we started 81st out of, I'm not exactly sure, I think it was 97 cars. We was towards the back. And, man, within 2 laps, I was running 12th. Like I said, my old man built a heck of a motor, and I kept that thing in low, and I turned it to the moon and shifted. And like I said, we was running 12th from 81st when that first caution come out. I believe it was Jeff Macy that crashed on that first caution.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And like I said, that was about one of my biggest accomplishments, going up there with a father and son built car. I mean, from the motor to the paint job, scaling it out, you name it, we done it ourselves. And up there with some big names, that's probably one of my biggest accomplishments. My dad even made Circle Track magazine, showed the street stocks in the NASCAR garages, showed him on one of the pages. The camera crew took a lot of pictures of my car, because my dad, he kept everything immaculate, and like I said, that's probably one of my biggest racing accomplishments, doing that.
Well, that is a pretty big accomplishment, especially to run on a big mile and a half like it was up there at Kentucky Speedway. And, kind of tell us how the rules differed. I know there's a few things you had to do. I think they put a big wicker bill on top of the car, and you had to limit your gear and different things you had to do. But kind of tell us a little bit about how it was getting that car ready and things that you had to do to even run that race.
Yeah, I had raced that car probably 4 or 5 years around these local tracks. But in order to make it up there on that mile and a half track, safety. I mean, we had to put a new fuel cell in it, brand new belts. You had to put in real thick door plates. And like you was mentioning, that wicker bill was actually a big spoiler. It went on the roof, slowed us down quite a bit. Instead of restricting the motor, they restricted the airflow to the car, so it would slow us down. But as far as being out there on the track, man, it felt like we was driving down Frederica Street just on a Sunday day cruise. And like I said, I really enjoyed it.
Kind of I think they kind of limited it to kind of a highway gear, so people wouldn't really have to turn their motors real hard. But that big spoiler up on top, and we always call it a wicker bill. But man, the goofiest looking thing, just a big steel wing on top of the car to slow those things down.
Yeah, that was their way of restricting us. Instead of putting restrictor plates on our motors, I guess for insurance purposes, to slow these cars down. And like I said, I believe they could have went about it a different way, and like you just mentioned, they did put us on a restricted gear. I believe, don't quote me, but I think it was like a 245 or something. And I guess a lot of guys were scared to turn their motors, because on that start, man, like I said, I'm not exaggerating. I turned that thing probably 9,500, and it held it. Like I said, we went from 81st to 12th within 2 laps, and made the whole race. That car was brand new. I put a brand new floater in it. That was one of the safety deals. You had to put a floater under it, and I run the old stock GM rear ends. And being new to the floater, I didn't put a good O-ring on the right rear. And when my tire changer, I think it was halfway through the race, you had to change right side tires. We changed it. The right rear tire fell out of his hand. I had a rear seal leaking. And just to compete with like Joe Barnes and Joe Williamson, Chuck Barnes Jr., and all them guys, with grease on the right rear tire, I feel like we won the race.
Well, it was cool, man, because the thing of it is, man, you had to be around at the end, and you made it all the way. And that's a big accomplishment for somebody who, kind of threw it together. Be honest with you, kind of quick come together deal. And to be able to make the whole race, that's a huge deal right there, especially in the eyes of, people were coming from all around to run those races. You think, 90 some odd people in the race. So that's a big thing.
Yes, it was, man. Like I said, we was on cloud nine after that, and then I think it was about a month later, Circle Track magazine come out, and there was my old man in it, and showed my car in the garages. And like I said, win, lose, or draw, I felt like that was one of my biggest accomplishments. Like I said, Dad and son built that car from the motor, ground up, and went up there and raced against some of the best there has ever been in street stocks. And to accomplish what we did, I was on cloud nine.
Well, that's awesome, man. Tell me a little bit about, did you transition to dirt after that, or when did the dirt transition? Maybe you got into a little bit of dirt racing.
Yeah, like I had a few buddies. I think I even built a motor for one, and he let me drive his car, and man, I was hooked on asphalt where I grew up, or started out on. If you wasn't set up, you was out in left field. I mean, it looked like you was on a dirt car on that asphalt track. But I drove that dirt car, and we didn't set nothing up, man. We just had a pretty decent motor in it, and I know I'm probably gonna get killed for saying this, but that dirt track's more of driving than it is as far as your crew setting it up and right air pressure and this and that. On dirt, you pretty much drive by the seat of your pants, and I like it a lot more than asphalt.
Well, there is definitely a difference, and the way you attack the track, in an asphalt car, when having to, you got to think of things like rolling through the center and when to pick up the throttle and things like that. On dirt, there's times when you can be in the throttle and times when you're not, but you're in the throttle more than you're not. So
Yeah.
Especially at Windy Hollow, you kind of know on that back straightaway coming around that D, it's hammered down.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, man, I want you to talk a little bit about, we went through a lot of stuff, but has stock car racing always been kind of your favorite thing? Or have you ever been interested in like motocross was your thing, but you got into stock cars, or how did, what's always been your favorite form of motorsport?
It's been circle track racing. Like I said, we play around on the streets, drag racing and stuff, but if someone goes to pass me and I can't block them or turn left and nudge them, I don't want no part of it. So I'd have to say it'd be circle track racing.
Well, circle track racing is near and dear to our heart, especially, that's for sure. So I'm glad to hear that. I want you to dig back into the stories a little bit and think about some of your favorite drivers and we've talked about a few of them, but I'd like to hear more about some of those guys from the time you started watching till even it can be now, some of your favorite drivers that you've watched and you're like, man, that's the guys right there.
Yeah. Well, way back years ago, Larry Matters was the man to beat up here at KMS. Like I said, Jeremy Mayfield didn't really have much for him. Buzzy Reynolds, none of them older guys could beat Larry Matters. He was fast. Matter of fact, my cousin used to help him on his car, and that's another person I need to thank while I'm on here. He's Scott Daniel. He actually built my first street stock for me, and man, that guy can fabricate anything. He's pretty slick on it. And not only Larry Matters, but Gene Mitchell. I grew up watching Gene, and Gene won a lot of races. Steve Evans, that old fart's been around forever, and like I said, he's won a mania races himself. And I can't just pinpoint one driver, especially there's a lot of good ones out there around this neck of the woods. So I'm not going to say who my favorite is right now.
Well, you got any good stories about hanging out with those guys or being around those guys, and as a little kid or even as you progressed a little bit older, did anything crazy or funny stick out?
Yeah, like I said, I got a couple of them. Speaking of that 2007 race up at Kentucky Speedway, me and my cousin drove up to Kimmel's shop, and Larry Matters actually worked for him. And we were just reminiscing about the good old days. Like I said, my cousin and Larry Matters, they were real good and real close. And Larry had a brother that was in a wheelchair, and he set his race cars up for up there at KMS. Like I said, that man was tough to beat. And also Gene Mitchell, a lot of people just remember him from the racetrack, but he come out to my house one day, and we didn't even talk about racing. He got an old lawnmower deck from me. He was working on his lawnmower, and we just talked, about life in general. And a lot of people didn't see that side of Gene, and I did. And like I said, he lives out there on the same road I do on 56, and I'd pass his house every day. And if I seen him out there, I'd stop and talk to him. And like I said, little memories like that, adds up. A lot of people's racetrack, especially on my side, to bring out the good and bad in you. And a lot of people only see the bad side of you. And we got so much heart and soul and time, money that we don't really have putting in these cars. And in the heat of the moment stuff, people think wrongly about you. I firmly believe any racer out there do anything for anybody, in the heat of the moment.
Well, we talked about Gene, and personally knowing Gene myself, grew up around Bo and played baseball with him, so I was, around Gene a lot and hanging out at their house a little bit, and I got to see a little bit of that side of Gene too, especially on the baseball side. It wasn't all racing. I wasn't really into that yet, and we'd go to the racetrack with my family and things like that, but I knew Gene raced, and the old number one, man, but I've seen some times when Gene's got, boy, you wouldn't want to mess with him, that's for sure. And but then you're right. There's times that he would do anything for you, help you out, come over, work on your car, tell you what you need to do, and that's just the way he was,
Yeah, like I said, that racing could bring the best in you out, or it could bring the worst in you out. So sometimes at the track, people let it blow over next week, go up, shake your hands. Even if you get into it on track or whatever, nobody means anything by it. It's just in the heat of the moment thing, act before you think. And like I said, I'm guilty of it quite a bit. But I've calmed down over the years. Like I said, I got 3 kids, and I got to calm down just a little bit.
That makes a big difference when you got the kids there, and I remember a night we were out at KMS, and you guys were racing. I guess Shane was racing. He had the mini stock out there, and I don't know what happened. He ended up stopping on the front straightaway, and boy, it ensued on the track. And then next thing you know, everybody was up in the grandstands, in the pit grandstands, and boy, it was a free for all.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I said, me and my brother, we not only are we passionate about what we do,
yeah,
I guess that's what you could say, but our fans, our moms, our grandmas, our kids, our wives are up in the stands, and they're cheering for us. They see how much time we got in these cars and how much heart and soul we got invested in them. And when somebody does somebody wrong, just because they're winning. My brother that year you're talking about won so many races. He got bottles thrown at him out on the track,
yeah,
spit on. Nobody sees that stuff. They just see the reaction
right
that we do when stuff happens to us. And like I said, it's hard to believe, but me and my brother both would give our shirts off our back to somebody that needed it worse than we did.
Well, the cool thing about I've known you for quite a while. We've never really sat down and talked too awful much about things, but I did. I kind of grew up around Shane a little bit. Worked with him at Kroger. That was my first job, and I remember him from then. And worked with his wife at Papa John's Pizza. So I kind of know a little bit about the family there. I remember that old Malibu you talked about, and doing burnouts in the back part of the Kroger.
Oh,
Boy,
yeah.
he'd get it on down there, man. But we had a lot of fun, and we'd always talk about things like that. And I think that if people don't know the real people and just what they see, you shouldn't be so quick to formulate your opinion, because you're right. You don't see maybe the aggravation, you just see the reaction.
That is true. Like I said, I got to give a big shout out to Clint Colley. He's about in the same boat I am. Racetrack, redneck, and just kick your butt on and off the track. But I tell you what, man, him and my dad got real close before my dad passed away, and I'd do anything for him, and he's done everything he could for me. And you wouldn't think that about Clint, because just hearing old stories, but I tell you what, it just goes to show you can't judge a book by its character, or
by its cover. Yeah. You can't judge its character by its cover. But
there you go.
Well, you talked about him a little bit, and then talk about Clint Colley. Clint's been a long-time racer, been done about everything, multi-time champion. His father, Jug, raced forever, and talk about watching Clint race and maybe racing with Clint yourself and having conversations, and that's a guy that we can't talk about enough.
That is true. Clint actually was a promoter at Windy Hollow for a few years, because he grew up out there about like I grew up at KMS, and he didn't want it to sit idle. And So he took it over and fought a long, hard battle and finally released the reins. But he's still out there every week supporting the track. His dad, Jug, my first few years I met him, I was young and thought nobody could touch me. We kind of got into it. But that man right there, in his last few years, there wasn't a night that I didn't see him out Windy Hollow. I went up and hugged him, and like I said, we started out enemies, but got to know each other. And man, I just miss them old timers. We're starting to lose more and more every year, and
absolutely.
As far as getting back to Clint, man, I don't think there's a track that he didn't win a championship on dirt cars.
Well, I tell you, they don't call him the king of clay for nothing. And watching Clint Cauley drive, he did what he had to do in a car. And that's one of the things where you can't shortchange a guy like that. If he needed to knock on that rear bumper, he'd do it. If he needed to slide up beside you and nudge you out of the way, he'd do it. But if he needed to pass you clean, if that's what it took, he'd do that too. And talking about Clint is one of those things. And also like Jug, we're losing guys, quicker than we really need to. And it's sad to say because that's what this is all about, is getting those stories out there and having guys like yourself come on and maybe be able to shed some light on stories, especially you got talking about started out enemies. I can tell you a few guys that we started out the same way. Talk now like it's nothing. Yeah. And that's a big thing, is where a lot of people don't understand about racing, that relationships can start bad and end good, and they can start good and end bad. It takes both kinds.
Man, you are absolutely correct on that, Nathan. Like I said, my dad, before he passed, was the tech man out there for Clint at Windy Hollow. And I know he threw a lot of people out, and a lot of people probably disliked him over that. But, man, once he passed, you would not believe the money people took out of their pockets they didn't have and donated to his widow. And, man, it's just we got a pretty good racing family around this community. And, like I said, I can't thank everybody enough. And I would do the same for anyone else.
Well, Jeremy, we're going to go ahead and take another quick break, and we're going to have a few commercials there, and we're on the other side, and we'll get into a few more things here, okay?
All right, thank you, Nathan.
Whether you're buying or selling a home, you want to ensure your needs are met. Lori Kimball with Home Realty Incorporated is the realtor for you. In today's fast-paced society, it's important to have someone on your side that will give you the care and treatment you deserve. Lori wants to build a relationship with you, and it's her full service commitment focusing on your family's wants and needs that sets her head and shoulders above the rest. You can contact Lori today at 270-315-1468. That's 270-315-1468. Or you can find her on the web at www.lorikimball.com. Call her today to unlock doors for your tomorrow by building a relationship with a realtor who's here for you.
And we're back once again, still sitting here with Jeremy Adkisson. Jeremy, one thing I want to ask you about, and this is a big kind of thing here lately. Our sport has been suffering a little bit, and we'll get into the state of racing here in a minute. But I want you to think about, on all your years of being in the sport and the things you've accomplished and things you've learned. And I kind of want you to talk a little bit about what advice you would give, to somebody just starting out, want to get started in a race car, and you kind of got that going on a little bit yourself because you got your son kind of getting a car for the first time. And, what comes to mind when you think of advice to give these young guys or young girls trying to get into the sport of racing?
Most important thing is your back pocket. Man, a lot of people want to start out in a class above their means or above their head. Start out in one of these bomber classes, the mini stocks, something that you can afford, or not just afford, something if it gets tore up, you're not going to, go in dead over. I will tell you from experience, the higher up you get, the more it becomes like a job instead of just a hobby of having fun. So, anybody just getting in, like I said, start out in a little mini stock, a bomber, something that you can afford, and if you don't like it, you ain't gonna lose too much money letting it sit.
Right. They don't need no hay sitting there, that's for sure. And it doesn't cost you a dime to let them sit in the garage. But, you're right. I think that's where a lot of people, when they get into the sport, they might get derailed thinking that, I got to start out because these guys are so fast. I got to make sure I put all this money and everything, and it's going to make me fast. And sometimes that's not the case. You can spend in the wrong areas.
Yes, you're exactly right. Everybody always thinks motor, 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 and to me, being an engine builder, I ought to think that too, but no, it's not, man. It's a combination of everything. You got to get that power that you do have to the ground, so that means good tires. You got to have good shocks. You got to know what springs, what air pressures. I mean, there's so much more to winning races than putting a big motor in a car and going out there and holding the gas, because sometimes to be faster, you go slower to be faster.
Right, we have heard that before, and I think that is something that that these people need to hear these days. Is sometimes you got to go slow to go fast, and that you're exactly right there.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I always laughed at my dad when he told me that, especially up at KMS. I could hear people talking about they're getting in their throttle middle of the turn, and I couldn't get on mine until I was coming out. And Dad said, not everybody runs the same gear. Not everybody's running the same spring rates. So, man, once I finally listened to him and calmed down, it made a lot more sense. So, like I said, if you hear something that sounds strange, just do a little research on it before you start knocking it.
Yeah, because I think that what you're going to find is, that person saying it's probably not the only person saying it, and they had to hear it somewhere themselves. So it's one of those things where, again, going back to listen to the guys that have been around forever, when they're telling you stuff like this, you need to pay attention.
Yes, you do. Like I said, I wish I'd started listening earlier in my racing career, because, there ain't no telling where we would be right now. But like I said, everybody just wants to get out there and go fast and push that gas, but sometimes that gas ain't the fastest way around the racetrack.
It's not. And I think, that goes hand in hand with being humble and not, not allowing your ego to say, well, that sounds crazy. I'm not slowing down. Man, I got to tack him corners. I got to get in there hard. You're right. If it sounds strange, do a little research on it, but be humble enough to where, you've said it yourself. I should have listened, man. I should have started listening before I did. And I would already, and I may have 10 more feature wins. You just never know,
That is right.
But being humble is a big part of our sport, and to be, you don't have to be better than everybody else. If you beat them on the track or outrun them on the track, should we say, that's going to speak volumes, and not just, not listening or not doing the things you're supposed to do.
That is right. Like I said, going back to Frankie Bartlett out there at KMS, I'd always show up to the track, rushing. The first feature I ever won, I come to the racetrack about a half hour early, showed up in flip-flops, a shirt, shorts, and sat in a lawn chair.
Doesn't everybody?
Well, I didn't at first, but I just took Frankie's words to heart, and I come to that track, relaxed, and man, that was my first feature win, and from there on out, I show up to the track in flip-flops now if it's not too cold out.
Hey, is that kind of a race day ritual that maybe that's something that kind of helps you to do things correctly during your race day, is to be, kind of follow the same format like that?
Yeah, you've got to get it like on a program or follow a schedule or whatever works. You need to stick with it, because you step away from it, you don't know what changed, what you done wrong. So try to get your routine down, and only thing I can say is relax. A lot of people, especially myself, always rushing on these race cars, and not only on the cars, but getting to the track. You got to be safe getting to the track and coming home from the track, because, that racing's not, not everything. Your family at home depends on you.
Right.
So, you got to use a little common sense.
Well, I think that's something that's lost too in translation these days. Is you're right. You got to be very, very safe. You look what happened to Wayne Coakley. That wasn't even a racing thing. It happened on the way home from the racetrack, and we lost a guy that was a legend of the sport, and just a car crash, and that's what happened. And you got to make sure that when you're going to the racetrack, you're coming home from the racetrack, you be just as safe as you were on the racetrack.
You're right, man. Like I said, it's all fun and games when you're at the track, but, go home mad because you lost or you blew a motor or cut a tire down, you drive a little extra fast. have a flat tire on your trailer and go over in the next lane and hurt somebody. It's not worth it. So just use your head and, just calm down a little bit. I'm probably the pot calling the kettle black, saying that, but the more I have learned to do that, life's a lot easier in general, especially racing.
Well, I think that you said, pot calling the kettle black and stuff like that, but I think that when it's coming from you, you're a guy that has learned that over the years to just calm down a little bit. Maybe it's not as bad as what it seemed at the time, and make sure you keep your head about you, because that's where A, you can ruin a reputation, or B, you can get yourself thrown out of a racetrack or barred or whatever else, or somebody can get hurt. And I think that's one of the things where being calm helps.
Yep, that is correct, Nathan.
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about just real quick on that same issue, advice to these younger guys. The Kimmel Series, and you guys have known this, is safety, just like we said on the racetrack. Having the right equipment, having good set of belts, good helmet, good suit, safety equipment on your car, that's paramount. That's one of the things where, how many times have you seen it over the years, guys coming in with half welded cages and bungee corded fuel cells, and we just can't afford to skimp on things like that.
That is right. That's the one downfall I see to the local dirt tracks. It seems like, especially if you go to Salem or anywhere like that, man, they nitpick you to death, and it's all on safety. They don't care if you're running a 434 versus a 4-cylinder. But if you ain't got the correct up-to-date seat belts, or, like you said, a good welds on your car, fire extinguisher, batteries covered up, you're not racing. And, man, I've seen chunks of lead fall off guys on the dirt track, come through the screens. People just bolt seats in, not weld their braces in. And to me, parts, hoods fly off, go up in the stands. Mm-hmm. You got to check that stuff. Like I said, you need to make safety number one. And if you're safe, it means you're going to stay on the track, so you're going to get a lot more wins under your belt.
Absolutely. That's the thing is being in these races and not having things, the correct lug nuts, the correct wheels on your car, things not, and especially, you're right. How many times have we seen, tires go flying up in the stands, and hoods and pieces of lead and things like that? Blaze Melton had an issue this year. A piece of lead come out, and he could have been seriously injured over that. And that's just taking, 5 extra minutes to tighten those bolts would have made a big difference.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I've seen it. Blaze, like I said, it about took his head off. I've myself had tools go through the radiator, chunks of lead, bust an oil pan, bust your radiator. It's just, you got to think back, what if that had happened to me? What if it fell off my car or a leader in front of you and damaged your car? You'd be mad, so the guy behind you is going to be mad. So try to show a little courtesy on stuff like that. And like I said, if you got a good, safe car, more likely, it's going to last. You're going to get a lot more wins, a lot more seat time.
Absolutely. And one thing is we want to touch on before we get out of here is, before we get off this, is just like when you grew up, I think it's important that these kids, it's a slippery slope of having kids in the pit area and versus not, especially if they're with somebody like they're supposed to be. But having these kids in the pit area, man, you don't find any more colorful characters than what you find in the pit area of your local racetrack, man. And we've said that a couple of times, and I think that's important that these kids get in there and maybe hear those old stories and hear the stuff. That's what drives interest. That's what piques their interest. That's
right, man. It's funny you said that. You go to look at Josh James. Everybody knows Josh James. That man takes 1 million pictures each race. And not only does he get the drivers with their cars or their crews, he gets the young children walking through. He gets the wives. He gets the daughters. He gets, the whole family. And that's pretty much what racing's all about, family time, going out there having fun. And like I said, look up Josh James, man. You'll see the different side of racing.
They will. How many pictures can you look at, through his albums there? Guys making funny faces or guys just laughing because they're in the middle of a story, or their kids, whole race trailer, but they're all their kids sitting around and people having fun, kids playing with their Matchbox cars. It's just, it's kind of become even more so now than ever, I think, a family sport, and I think that's important.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, you see a lot of dogs anymore,
yeah.
Small, big, few years, well, I ain't gonna say a few years, probably 20 years ago, you didn't see all that. Now they're bringing RVs, and like I said, they're young kids. It's got a lot more family oriented. Like back years ago, people used to drink in the pits, and ain't no telling what else they done. But now, like you said, it's a lot more family oriented. Like I said, and you can see that through the snapshots on James's web page, and
well, I completely understand what you're saying, man. Yeah. One thing I want to get into now, and it's kind of a hot button issue these days, and we talk about it a lot because it directly affects us, is social media. And I like to get everybody's take, and this is one of Wes's favorite topics for sure because he uses a lot of social media. But, man, how do you see that social media is a part of racing now versus, you talk about 20 years ago, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have things like that, and now we do, and Twitter and Instagram and whatnot, and who you do or whatever this thing is now. But what do they have? How has it affected the sport of racing, that, in your opinion?
Well, I'm like you, Nathan. It can help or hurt a track. If you get on there and you had a bad night at the track, don't get on there and bash the track, because all it's going to do is make it worse. They're not going to get any more fans in the stands, any more car count. If you got a problem with them, I know I'm calling the kettle black, but just chill out. Get on there and, thank them. Everybody always talks about prices of hot dogs and Cokes and this and that, cheeseburgers. But, that's the only thing keeping these tracks open. It's a lot cheaper than going to Florida, stuff like that.
That's true.
So, just don't bash tracks. If you love racing as much as me and my family and you yourself, try to refrain from bashing them. You can, not put suggestions on there or whatever, but just don't badmouth them. It's really hurting the sport.
Right, an opinion, an opinion's not a bad thing, and obviously everybody's got them. We know what they're like, but opinions aren't bad, but you've got to, I guess, show restraint, and it's just like getting in an incident on the track, and we talked about maybe having altercations in the pits or in the stands or things like that. It goes both ways with social media because, acting too quickly, in that moment, jumping on a Facebook page and running down a driver, running down a crew, or people you don't even know that was your fans, doing the same thing on your behalf. I think it's a slippery slope there, and that's one of those things where you just got to calm down a little bit. You got to be patient.
Yeah, you're right, man. Like I said, speaking of one of the local tracks, Windy Hollow ran one too many laps a couple weekends ago in the open wheel race, and they declared the wrong winner because they ran too many laps. And they come back and paid that guy second place, paid him first place money, and the guy that actually won first place money. That's a stand-up track. A lot of promoters need to take notes on that. And like I said, you could be mad. Technically, yeah, he did get the shaft because he didn't get the checker flag. The other guy got it, but they made it right. So, just try not to bash your local track, especially on social media, because they use that to promote their business and bring in cars and bring in fans. That's all they need is one person can get on there and say something bad, and that'd leave 10 people out of the pits or out of the grandstands. And that could be that track opening up next year or closing, shutting down for good. So try not to do that.
Well, and you're absolutely right, and I think that's one of the things where, we think about back in the day, it could be just maybe a phone call. Then, you finally get home and pick up the old wall phone there or cordless phone and call somebody, say, you live, out in Sargo area, Beach Grove area, and me in Whitesville. You might call me and it might just go across the county. But now on social media, we've got the power to reach people in multiple different states, multiple different countries. And I'm not saying multiple different countries are going to come over here and go to the race, but you never know. They might be looking to something to experience. But, people from other states, especially the 7 states we've got surrounding Kentucky, that's the potential for a lot of cars, a lot of fans traveling. May want to stop in, go to Windy Hollow Speedway. May want to go to Kentucky Motor Speedway. That's a big thing, man, and that's what we've got to be vigilant about these days.
That is correct. Like I said, there's already been a lot of tracks shut down, and we don't need any more. There's too many racers in our small community and the surrounding communities. We just got to keep plugging, and hopefully it gets better like it was 20 plus years ago when you didn't have any room to sit in the grandstands or even in the pitch, you know. So yeah, we need to support your track, you know, even if you had bad altercations or whatever, just need to try to support them, because these guys aren't doing it for free. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
And they're not. A lot of people think they're making money hand over fist. They're not. It takes a lot to run a track.
Well, I think it takes a lot to run a track, but it also takes a lot of nerve, a lot of patience, because of everything that you have to deal with. And you know, we talk to track promoters a lot, and outside, behind the scenes, and sometimes on the mic. But we hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories, and of course we won't go into those here. But about what it takes to run a track, and how much, you know, just in their own words, bullcrap you got to put up with on a weekly basis, a nightly basis, daily basis, of people having all this opinion or that opinion, or you think it should be this way or that way. And nobody's got any time and money invested in it like they do. But those guys have got to make the decisions, you know. And I think that's important to remember. Just like the deal that happened in the modified race at Windy Hollow, one too many laps, just an oversight. It just happened, and I think that it's just a mistake. But things were made right and very quickly. And I think you're right. That's what it takes to be successful.
That is right. Like I said, try to treat everybody fairly. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, Nathan. If I had owned a track and my boy won a race, well, sure, I'm going to show a little favoritism. Just don't do it bluntly and tick people off, you know, because you're going to lose car count, you're going to lose fans, you're going to lose income, and, you know, just try to treat others the way you want to be treated, and you'll be successful.
Well, rolling into that, from what you just said, we'll roll into the state of racing here, and it's a big segment we love on this show, just for the simple fact that I'd love to get people's opinions. And, you know, you hadn't been to see the race car for a little while now, but you've been to the races and you get to watch and you kind of keep up with it on social media, which is a good thing, you know, for that. But, you know, what do you think versus – and you know, we knew about the heydays whenever, you know, you talk about 15, 20 years ago when car counts were strong, you know, you're right, you had to get there early, man. There wasn't no getting there late and getting a seat. I mean, you were standing. And – it's same thing with the pits. If you rolled in late, man, you might be parking out in the parking lot somewhere, unloading your car and driving it in. You just never knew. But what do you think about racing locally? You know, and it can be in the area here around this state and maybe surrounding areas. But what do you think about the way racing is now? Are we on the upswing a little bit? Are we coming back a little bit? Are we still in a rut, or how do you see it?
I think it all depends on which track you go to. I hadn't made it to Cedar Ridge yet this year, but I heard they're doing really well. Windy Hollow, like I said, man, week in, week out, that place is packed. And I think it all falls back on the promoters, the way they treat people, their demeanor when you're out there on the track, the favoritism being showed. And like I said, there's one certain track around here. I'm probably not going to say it on the radio, but, man, I've raced everything from go-karts down there to motocross to full-blown race cars, and you just can't run a business and have family down there doing what they want to do, and other drivers getting by with certain things, and you throwing other drivers out for the same thing you just didn't throw a previous driver out of. You know, you just got to be fair, and I've seen that at a couple of the tracks. Not going to mention any names, but if you want car count and you want fans in the stand and crew members in the pitch, you got to be fair. I mean, at point blank, you got to treat everybody the same.
You're absolutely right, man. And like I said, we're not talking about any track in particular. I mean, you know, we've seen it, and it's not in just our area. It can happen anywhere. And again, guys, we're not bashing any tracks, but I think you're right. You got to treat everybody fairly. That's number one. That's rule one. Number two is I think that you know, we got to make sure fairness goes all the way across the board, especially, you know, in your tech line. And I think that's, you know, I think we need to get back to that rigorous tech like we used to have.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with that. Like I said, and not only having a good tech man and a stern, fair tech man, you got to, if you want cars from different tracks, y'all all got to get on the same page on your rules.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you got a weight limit on your cars here, and down this track don't have weight limits, I mean, everybody needs to get on board. I believe it would benefit every track around here locally if they're on the same set of rules.
I think you're not far off there, man. Because I tell you, out of all the guests that we've had, probably 85% of them have come on here and said something to that effect. That I think that's where we need to all work together, and racers, promoters, fans, and things like that. Everybody needs to work together for this sport to make it what it needs to be. And where guys, if they want to come up from Tennessee, they can come here to race. They want to come down here from Indiana, they can come here to race. And maybe there's certain things, little things that you might have to change and stuff like that. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg to come down here and race, but just come down and have fun with us, man, and let us show you our hospitality just like we would expect from your track.
That's right. That's what it's all about. Like I said, in a lot of the local tracks, if you do got a guy coming 3 or 4 states away, and he's just a little bit different stuff on his car, let him run it that week. If he likes it, tell him before he comes back, change it. I think if a lot more tracks done that instead of just trying to throw people out, that would bring in more cars. Because just I ain't gonna say be lenient, but be courteous to the guys traveling hours away to come to your track and give you business.
Right, because on both sides of that, you got to be courteous. But then again, if they knew they were going to come to your track, it's on that driver to make sure he researches a set of rules that you have for your track to make sure that he's, as close to legal as possible. But you're right. It may be one of those things where you have to fudge a little bit, and if you want to come back, man, you're going to have it right next time you come back. Advance and Buzz, we're glad to have you, but you got to make it right if you want to come back.
Yeah, that's true. And, not break the rules, maybe stretch them and bend them a little bit. If he comes to the track and just say he's running a little softer compound tire than what you're allowed to run the locals, yeah, that may tick some of the locals off. But if that driver that done that brings back 5 of his buddies from that other track, hey, it helped you out, and he will be right the next time he comes back. So I think everybody needs to take that into consideration.
Well, and a lot of that is, I don't know if you personally, racing against 3 guys maybe ain't as fun as racing against 13 guys or 23 guys. Having a good, because at the end of the day, putting on a show for the fans is what it's all about. That's what the promoters are there to do, to put on a good show. The drivers, it's on the drivers to put on a good show on the racetrack. And, lots of cars in a race, whereas it can get crazy sometimes. You know exactly what I'm saying there. But, it's better than having just a few cars out there racing, putting on that show for the fans.
That's right. Like I said, I've not any tracks around here, but when I've went out of town before and go to a racetrack and there's only 2 or 3 cars, and within a couple laps, who the winner is, they're going to leave. You don't sell as many hot dogs or Cokes or popcorn. And, just like you said, car count is going to bring fans. And fans is why all of us is doing this.
Right, because fans got a twofold job, man. They got to pay their money to get in and hit up that concession stand. Make sure you support your local racetrack. And, we're big on that here is support local racing. Now, that can be whatever area you're in. But, that's your main job. And, again, it falls on the drivers to put on that good show.
Yep.
Well, Jeremy, real quick, man, I want to ask you something. I want you to talk about, again, working with your dad and what that translates to now working with your son on his racing program. He's just getting ready to start out. But, thinking back on all the times that you had with John, how's that going to translate, and how much more special is it going to be for you working with Jeremy Jr.?
Well, I know I've got to show a lot more patience than what my old man did. Like I said, he was old school, and I don't regret nothing that he showed me or taught me. But they don't make them like they used to. Like I said, he would take me, my brother, all the neighborhood kids fishing, hunting, whatever he could do when he got off work. He was always busy with us kids, and I'm kind of slacking in that department. And I'm hoping that getting into this racing is going to bring me and my boy a little closer, show him a little bit like my dad showed me, and just go from there. Like I said, he's a great kid, straight A student. He, last year was his first year racing motocross, and he won him a championship indoors over at Greenville, finished 3rd at Russellville. I mean, he's a real sharp young man, and like I said, I just hope it brings us a little closer together. And if and when he starts having kids, he can do the same thing.
Well, I think that's going to be important. You know, somebody who's real sharp-minded that way and picks up on it very quickly. I think that patience is going to help out. You know, it's going to be a lot easier on your part that he's going to pick it up and maybe be listening to old Dad there, picking up things that, you know, just little tidbits of information here and there to what's going to make him better.
Yes, like I said, I think we're going to have fun. I know we'll butt heads a few times. You know, what racers and crew chiefs don't. But I'm looking very forward to seeing this little man in car.
Well, the good thing about it is you don't have to wait very long. Going to be the Halloween 150 at the Hollow is going to be his first race Sunday, the 28th there at Windy Hollow Speedway, and you guys got your little piece there. We bought it, I guess, got it from Ricky Rudd. There's another legend there, man, and that's not too shabby a piece to have for sure.
Yeah, we hope it stays together for us. Like I said, we're not looking to go out there and win or set any track records or anything. We just want to do a little bonding in the race car and rub a little paint and show him what he's getting into for next year.
Well, that's true, and you know, that's the thing. The pressure's on him now because sitting in that passenger seat's a driver himself, and wouldn't mind at all to get behind the wheel again.
That's right.
Well, Jeremy, is there anything you want to add, buddy, before we cut out of here? Anybody you especially want to thank, and some things you want to talk about before we get out?
No, not really. Like I said, just, you know, I'm kind of guilty of it too, but just don't get on social media and bash the tracks. Like I said, they're all out here for us. They're not out there putting all that blood, sweat, and tears in them tracks just to get bashed. You know, they're doing us all a favor. Just, you know, go support your local tracks.
That is important, man, and that's a message that we need to carry forward. And you guys got any sponsorship on that machine going into Sunday that you guys want to thank, or anybody that's helping you out that just kind of behind the scenes that needs a little bit of light on them?
Yeah, I need to thank James Embry with Superb Heating and Cooling. Like I said, he put me in his car last year, and I drove it pretty much all year. Never asked for nothing in return. He helped us on JJ's quad racing. Brian Howard, Howard's post-frame building sales, he helped us out with JJ's indoor racing. Like I said, my wife for putting up with me, spending all my extra time and money.
You gotta have that.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you for having us on. Hopefully, you know, we can get a lot more business and fans and racers from doing the things you guys are doing also.
Well, that's the important thing, man. That's why we're doing it, and it's to hear stories and listen to a little bit of the old school, a little bit of the new school. And I love guys that definitely, we love every guest that comes on, don't get me wrong, but we love guys that can bridge the gap too, man. You know, knew what it was like back then and how it is now. And I think we get a big snapshot of, you know, how it is to be in the racing business or the racing hobby. And that's important to us. And, man, for you to say to us, thank you for having you on, asking you to be on. You know, we appreciate you agreeing to do it, and arm twisting and whatnot we had to do to get you on.
Yeah.
But we appreciate you coming on, man, and supporting us.
Hey, no, I appreciate it, man. Like I said, I think the last time I was on the radio was talking to Adam Alexander sitting out there at Texas Roadhouse.
Listen here now.
If that tells you how long it's been. But I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, I hope y'all can help the local tracks out doing what you guys are doing, and I appreciate you having us on.
Well, we appreciate y'all, like I said, and we hope to have you back on again, and maybe we can get the Adkisson brothers and get a good show going there, and you guys bounce off each other and see what we come up with there. Does that sound all right?
Oh yeah. I think I'm gonna finally get them to go to Windy Hollow this Sunday to watch us in this enduro. So if you ain't doing that Sunday, y'all come on out.
There you go. Well, Jeremy Adkisson, we appreciate it, buddy, and we hope to see you again soon. You're welcome anytime you want to come on, and we'd love to have you back.
Hey, I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to take another quick break here, and we'll be back for the end of this episode.
Having trouble getting your business vehicle noticed? Want your race machine to look sharp on and off the track? Give Josh Taylor a call at High Octane Wraps and Apparel. They specialize in high-quality vinyl graphics as well as full vehicle vinyl wraps. They can handle jobs of all sizes, whether you're racing go-kart all the way up to your semi-truck. With quick turnaround in design and install, you can truly call today and look good tomorrow. Give them a call at 270-929-2605 or stop by the shop at 2531 West 2nd Street in Owensboro.
And we're back here at the Bent Fender Podcast. Man, what an episode. Another great episode. We can't say it enough. We love what we're doing here, man. And Jeremy Adkisson did not disappoint, man. Had a great talk with him. Heard some good stories about a lot of legends for sure, and also some great advice.
Absolutely, I think anytime you have someone who has a racing career like his, I think he's seen a lot and done a lot and has a lot to offer. And just like you and he said, these young guys and gals who are interested in racing, partner up with some of these. I'm not going to say old timers because he's not an old timer.
No, not
but
at all.
Partner up with some of these racers.
Veteran.
And, veteran. That's a good word. And listen to their stories and let them pass that knowledge on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the main thing, and that's what we covered a little bit in the advice section. There was, he did the same thing, and he kind of cautioned himself, and he, not listening as early as he should have. But I think that you're going to be remiss if you hang around the pits and you've got your own car, and you're trying to do what's best for your racing program, get better, do the things you need to do to adjust on your race machine. You need to make sure to listen to the people who know what the heck they're talking about.
Well, it's going to be so much easier. It's going to be much more fun. You're going to have less frustration. Listen to these words of advice and do the things that they help you with. And I look forward to again another driver that I met for the first time today.
Right.
Look forward to meeting his brother, maybe his dad. He brought Jeremy Jr. was here with him, watching the old magic happen behind the podcast mics. So it's a cool deal, and it's a.
No, you're talking about it's cool that Jeremy's dad was here, and he was here to listen to his father.
Yeah.
And it was cool to hear a lot about all the legends, but hearing about John T. Adkisson, man, and what he meant to a lot of people, and a guy that was tough as nails, and gone way too soon, and that's we won't get into all that, but. It was gone way too soon, and they sure miss him, and he was super cool, to be around, and the guy could make a motor run, and it's just one of those things, man. What it would have been cool to have that episode as well, man. Have the whole family. That would have been awesome.
Well, I have a soft spot for multi-generational families and racing. I just think it's a cool thing that we just need to keep. Pushing this forward for the next generation to come, and it's just a way that it continues to grow and stay relevant and a sport that we love.
Yeah, absolutely. And two things I picked out of a lot of Jeremy's stories there were my favorites for sure. Was hearing about the old school guys at KMS was awesome, but Cale Yarborough driving his car, man. I can't believe, that's one of those things where I remember watching the episodes of the Dukes of Hazzard where Cale was on there and the Dukes help him out. And I know that's fantasy world, but, Cale was one of those guys in NASCAR was a really colorful guy and always a super cool guy. And,
sure.
And one thing on top of that is I think we've said this a bunch of times, having the guys from NASCAR and different things like that come out to Kentucky Motor Speedway, those big nights. I mean, I'm telling you, they were hanging from the freaking light poles out there to watch these guys climb in to the local boys' cars and get out there and, man, trade some paint, try to race. And they didn't take it easy. Now, that's the thing. They did not take it easy, not one bit. And
easy, Mark Martin. That's my car. It's not yours.
Yeah.
Don't rub too much paint off of it.
Well, I think they've got the money to replace it. But, but they did. They didn't take it easy, man. They really got out there and put on a good show for the fans.
Oh, for sure.
And guys that climb out laughing, hugging each other. I mean, these guys have raced together for 30 years. And, a guy like Harry Gant, it's cool to hear that guy, just to hear him talk, man. It's great. And so I think that's something that, we can't it's sad that maybe that doesn't happen anymore. And I don't know if that could ever, and of course the legends, those guys don't really want to get in a race car anymore, and I don't know. Maybe something like that could come back, but you just never know. Another thing was him running to Kentucky Speedway, man. I was not able to go to that race, but the people that did go, man, they had a blast. It was pretty cool to see all the Owensboro guys up at Sparta, Kentucky, running on the big track, 1.5 mile NASCAR track, in street stock cars that you'd run at Kentucky Motor Speedway on the quarter mile. I mean, it just now 3/8 mile. But, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's cool to get our city and show, even within the state of Kentucky, to show that racing's not dead here. You know, and
No,
I know that was a few years ago now, but you know, you never know. Something like that could happen again.
True.
And people, you know, were eager to get in on it, wanted to get in on it, had the means to do it, and did it. And I think that those guys will have those memories forever, and they can look back on it as something that was a really cool deal.
I agree 100%.
So,
and I like the fact that, you know, he does. Jeremy was a just really down-to-earth guy, and he talked about a lot of the same things that we hear other drivers talk about, you know, whether it's safety or consistency, you know, between tracks. And you can just tell that, you know, this is something that he loves doing, and he has a passion, you know, behind it. He might not race as much anymore as he would like to, but, you know, he is still part of it, and he still has a wealth of knowledge and experience. And
he does. I mean,
you know, it's cool to see. It's cool to see him passing that on, and you know, I think that's my big takeaway is, you know, whether it's, you know, Chase Estes with his kids, or you know, Blake Hillard and his, you know, whoever that we talk about, and they have their kids that they're getting interested in the sport. I think it's awesome, and
well, that's what it's all about.
it is.
That's what sustains.
And and you know, we talk all the time about how racing is a family and it's a community, and you know, when you do have families like that, it's never more evident that it is a family sport. So I like it. I like it a lot.
Absolutely, man, and that's what it's all about. Well, just like we said, you know, and you know, maybe if they get their kids involved, they've got friends. Maybe they bring their friends to the racetrack. They get involved, and then those kids get a car together. You just never know. You know what I mean? So that's one of those things where you know, we've got to not turn a blind eye to that, because that's part of our sustainable pipeline.
No, for sure.
But also, you know, bringing those new people in, getting them interested in the sport, and making sure that they, you know, understand what the sport's about. And just like he said, you know, if they want to start out, make sure that they get in where they fit in. You know what I mean? Make sure you don't get in over your head, because that's the quickest way to burn yourself out on racing. A, you're going to be broke, and B, you're not going to have, you know, anything to show for it. You can't afford to run your car, and you won't have anywhere to run it. So you got to be careful. And,
so speaking about running your car, we are, you know, we talked about at the beginning, we are coming up to the end of the season, but there is racing action happening. This weekend, you've got I don't believe Cedar Ridge is running this weekend.
No, I think they're off this weekend,
but Western Kentucky Speedway down in Nebo.
Now their last points night, correct?
Is running tomorrow.
Right.
Then we have
we're talking about the 28th, 27th.
27th.
Yes, 27th.
27th.
Saturday night.
Saturday night, 27th. And then we have
on Sunday, the 28th,
the Halloween 150 at the Hollow, which is they are running regular classes.
Features only.
Last points night there.
Right.
And then the 150 lap enduro.
Right.
Pitting at lap 75. So, you know, if you have to pee, then aim for lap 75.
You won't want to miss it.
Nope.
Also,
then we have racing at Kentucky Motor Speedway.
Right, the Bluegrass 125 for the sportsman cars.
They picked up their rain-out date on the 28th. So
maybe street stock and sportsman. Yeah, sportsman cars.
So then November 3rd is going to be Cedar Ridge's Enduro and Nebo's Enduro.
Yeah, Western Kentucky Speedway running Enduro also that day. So you guys got a couple more weekends. And I think maybe the drag strip at Windy Hollow Raceway Park may come to life one more time.
November 10th, I think I've heard.
So, you know, we've got a few dates to close out the season. I think Clarksville's still running just a little bit on the weekends, Friday nights. So get down there and check that out as well. So a myriad of racing. You've only got a couple of weekends left, so make sure you get out, support your local track, support local racing. That's what it's all about, and support those sponsors.
Agreed.
So speaking of sponsors,
even support them in the off season.
Right, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. They need money during the off season, just like they need money during the season.
Go get your haircut. Go buy your pizzas. You know, whatever it is. Go buy a car.
Absolutely.
You know, whoever's sponsoring these people, go support them.
Well, you can support them with us at Mach 5 Race Cars, Parts and Carts, Fairview IG Management, Martin's Towing and Recovery, Chad's Barbershop, Glenstone Construction, Slingshot Media, Red Star Graphics, Lori Kimball Home Realty, Octane Racewear and Apparel, Graphics and Apparel, and also Willie's Carburetor and Dime Shop.
Yep.
You can find us at iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, Podbean.com, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube, Overcast, Radio Public. We covered all there.
Yep, we did.
iHeartRadio.
Yep.
So that's a pretty good little list there. If you want to find us on the web, on social media, you can find us Facebook, Conway Racing Team, and also the Bent Fender Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Conway Race Team, Instagram, Conway Racing, www.conwayracingteam.com. Also, the BentFenderPodcast.com.
Yep.
Right, so we got it all.
All of us. Yes, sir.
So, make sure you check out. We want to remind you one more time, get down there November the 3rd. You won't want to miss this. Kentucky Motorsports Hall of Fame induction ceremony at the Speed Gym there in downtown Owensboro. Get out to Town Square Mall and check out Skills VR Arcade. Our friends, the Fairs, out there doing pretty cool stuff. Make sure you check out Hot Laps of Blake Smith.
If you need to get scared one more time, this is the last weekend for Fright Night at Diamond Lake.
Right.
Tonight and tomorrow. So come out to the haunted house, get your scare on, support another racer, Robbie Darrington, and we got just big stuff happening, big stuff.
That's right.
And,
We're not hanging it up. That's for sure.
No.
Don't think that we're hanging it up at all. We got plenty of more guests to go and plenty more time to go. So when the racing action stops on the track, we're going to try to fill that void and give you guys something to listen to in the off season, hear those stories, and maybe make some memories yourself. So,
absolutely. So we want you to be part of it. Come on the show. Tell us who you want to be on the show. Tell us you hate us. Whatever it is, let us know. So I think that's it for now, man.
Right. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting our sponsors, our guest sponsors, our guests, the show, everything we do here.
Yep.
We love all you guys, that's for sure. Donald Moss used to say it, and it still rings true today. Hey, man, as long as you're racing, that's what we think here. So.
And if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter.
That's right. That's weird.
Maybe.
Depends on what kind. Be a booster at least. So anyway, well, we're going to back out of here. We will see you next week, and we appreciate everything you do. I'm Nathan Conway. With me, as always, Wes Lou Allen. We'll see you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to the best up-and-coming motorsports podcast on the internet. Tune in next week to see who we're trading paint with on the Bent Fender Podcast.